Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum and I'm here today at the Rock Island Auction Company taking a look at some of the guns that they are going to be selling in their upcoming September of 2017 premiere auction. And today we're taking a look at one that got a lot of publicity in the media when it first came out, and it's still kind of probably a pretty well-known gun for something to be on this channel. This is an Arsenal Firearms AF2011A1, and it is the double Siamese 1911. This is produced by an Italian company, and it's interesting in that I think, my understanding is, that this actually kind of accidentally became a commercial firearm. The guys who produced this are, what they initially were building, what they were focusing on, were miniature, really good miniature scale models, fully functional, of firearms. And they had this is something that's popular in some collector circles, especially in Europe, where it's a lot more difficult to get authentic firearms. But if what you appreciate is the design and the mechanics and the craftsmanship, you can make, say, a half-scale or even smaller miniature model of a firearm, and you can get all of those mechanical aspects to it. You can have even finer machining demonstrated, and it's something that's completely unregulated because it doesn't actually shoot. So that's a popular thing in some circles, and the guys behind this were actually doing that. And they have a line of something like 150 different miniature firearm models that they've made. And they look gorgeous. When this first came out at SHOT Show, I went to take a look at it and saw some of their sample miniature guns, and man, they're amazing. Now, my understanding is this started out as basically like an engineering proof of concept, not really a vanity project, but a project of, I bet we can do this, and boy, wouldn't it look impressive. Let's see if we can make one, and then we'll use that as a way to build publicity for this new company that's starting to expand, well, for example, into the American market. I could be wrong about this, but that is my understanding from talking to the guys at SHOT Show that first year that these were introduced. So it is, in fact, quite the significant engineering accomplishment to get what is basically two side-by-side pistols that operate close enough in unison that the thing's actually a functional firearm. Now, is it a practical firearm? No, it really is not. This thing is ludicrously heavy and it's incredibly huge. It's a really wide gun. This is, you might think that, well, it's just two side-by-side single-stack magazines. That's like a double-stack magazine. No, it's not. It's quite significantly wider than that. It should be a pretty accurate gun, I think, except that it's kind of a moot point because it has two barrels. I suppose I should point out, for people who aren't familiar with this thing, this is literally two 1911 pistols mounted, built side by side into a single frame and slide. So it has two triggers and two hammers, but they're connected. And every time you pull either trigger, it fires two shots, one out of each barrel. So you can't really shoot groups with it because every time you fire, you're getting two bullet holes, and they're going to be at least an inch or so apart because the barrels are an inch or so apart. So, and by the way, they're regulated at the factory. So there's one set of sights in the middle. You can't adjust the individual point of impact of each individual barrel. For all these reasons, I mean, this is a showcase firearm. This is not, really doesn't serve any actual practical purpose. And to the company's surprise, when they presented this, people started wanting to buy them. And enough people wanted to buy them that they ended up putting them into much greater production than anyone really anticipated. This particular one is serial number 446. I mean, there's lots of historic guns that I take a look at where they made less than 500. They made fewer of, various historical guns than they have of this, purely as a, hey, that's pretty cool, I've got $4,000 to spare, why don't I buy one, kind of project. So it is a very interesting thing to hold on to. It's a cool toy, really, because that's kind of what it is. But man, it is pretty cool. So why don't we go ahead and take it apart, because it's also interesting to see the inside of how this was done, mating up two guns into a single unit. If you're interested in seeing some shooting with this thing, fortunately for you, there's a lot of video of people shooting them on YouTube. Of course, this has the social media thing down pat. And so everybody and their brother who has a shooting channel wanted to get their hands on this and film some video of them shooting it. Probably the most interesting footage out there is Jerry Mitchell's of him shooting 2 of them at some ridiculous rate. But the best part about that is the really good high-speed camera that he has, where you can actually see the bullets leaving the barrel simultaneously, and it's cool footage. However, what most people don't do on camera is take it apart. So that's what we're going to do here. And that's actually going to be really easy because this comes apart just like a 1911. So we have a magazine release here on the left side, just like a 1911. The magazine for this thing is 2 1911s that share a common base plate, 2 1911 magazines that share a common base plate, 8-round capacity. Of course, you're not supposed to put more than 5 in for a long time. Cock the hammer, check it. Recoil springs pretty stiff in this because there's actually 2 of them. They actually include a special tool for disassembling the barrel bushings, but you don't really need it. You just treat these like regular barrel bushings. We're going to push that in, pull this one out. There's 1 barrel bushing. There's 2 barrel bushings. The recoil springs in this one are just kind of still stuck to the guides inside, so we'll leave them there. Open the slide up to the disassembly point right there, being very careful not to scratch the gun. And then you can pull the slide stop out. And then the slide comes off the frame, the really huge frame. Now we can take out the recoil springs. The early models apparently had 2 standard independent recoil spring guide rods. This particular one has a single contiguous piece, which is kind of cool. That makes sense. That's easier to deal with 2 recoil springs together that way. You may be wondering, if I take these barrels out, how do I know which one goes in which side? The answer to that is they are each marked, but only on one side. So the right-hand barrel is marked on the right, and the left-hand barrel is marked on the left. So you can keep track of which is which. And the barrels simply come out the front of the slide. This double slide is really pretty cool. 2 independent firing pins, however, it has 1 contiguous combined hammer. 2 extractors, but one of them is mirror image on the left side of the gun, while the other is a standard type on the right. 2 sets of locking lugs, 2 mainspring guide housings, and then that 1 sight or set of sights right down the middle of the gun. The only really technical problem I have with the pistol is the grip safety here. It's 1 wide grip safety, and it's got a pretty hefty spring in it, and it doesn't come out very far. So in my hand, it's actually fairly difficult to get a grip that actually disengages the grip safety without kind of contorting the inside of my thumb to specifically do it. As long as you can depress the grip safety, because the triggers are connected, you can fire it with either trigger, which is good because this thing's wide enough that you're only going to get a grip that lets you put pressure on one of the 2 triggers. You can't, I mean, if you want to hold both triggers, you're not really getting the gun into the back of your hand. One might think that there would be some legal or safety issues involved with kind of making a hybridized double gun like this. ATF apparently is just fine with this thing firing 2 shots simultaneously, presumably because it has 2 barrels and 2 triggers, and it's not really that different from someone firing a double-barrel shotgun by yanking on both triggers simultaneously. As for mechanical safety, the only real conceivable issue I could come up with is if you had ammunition where 1 round was a hang fire. You can load just 1 of these magazines if you'd like, and it will fire 1 barrel at a time, whichever one has ammunition. Firing a single cartridge doesn't give the slide quite enough energy to fully cycle, but it will unlock and open partly. So in theory, if you had a second round, if you had 1 round that was a slight hang fire that didn't detonate until after the slide had partially opened, you could get an out of battery firing that way. It's kind of a far-fetched thing, and it certainly does require the use of pretty crummy ammunition. Normally hang fires are reserved for badly stored, very old military surplus ammo. So if you have one of these, stick to good commercial ammo and you should be just fine. The markings on here are pretty kind of typical, boring commercial markings. We got some Italian proof marks, you know, read owner's manual before firing, yes, yes, yes. What's kind of cool to me though is, I like the way they did this. They had the 1911 and then the kind of over engraved 2011. You know, that's just a neat way to do that sort of logo. And on the other side, they do have their Arsenal Firearms crest on the slide, and also as a little emblem in each of the grip panels. It's interesting to note that in the instruction manual, in the paperwork that comes with the gun, it very specifically says that there is a 1,000-round break-in period required for the gun, and for that first 1,000 rounds, you are not to load more than 5 rounds in each side of the magazine at a time, which seems pretty weird to me. I don't know why the number of rounds in the magazine would really have any impact on break-in. I don't know why a gun that is this well made would require a 1,000-round break-in period. This kind of leads me to suspect that it is a mechanism to avoid dealing with customer service issues. Anytime someone has a problem, they're able to say, well, have you done the 1,000-round break-in? If not, you know, finish that up and then call us back. Because until you break it in all the way, there's nothing that we can fix. You know, we'll deal with it if it's still a problem then. And I suspect the vast majority of owners of these are going to put far fewer than 1,000 rounds through them. I think a lot of people are probably going to put 0 rounds through them and hold on to them as collectibles for down the road when they're not available and it's a big, prestigious, cool, rare thing that will go up in value. The people who do shoot them, I suspect most people will kind of get over the initial Sturm and Drang and impressive cool factor, and it kind of then turns into, wow, this is a really big heavy pistol with a lot of recoil and it's kind of obnoxious to shoot. Maybe I'll go back to something a little more practical, and I think they'll get to that point well before they get 1,000 rounds through the gun. At any rate, there are certainly cool reasons to own this thing. I mean, if you're interested in firearms for the design and engineering aspects, well, that's exactly what this is. So this particular one, of course, is coming up for sale here at Rock Island. If you take a look at the description text below, you'll find a link to their catalog page on it. It comes with the original case, and you can see pictures of that and their price estimate and their description, everything you need to know. And if you decide to place a bid, you can do so through the website or here live at the auction. Thanks for watching.